Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Got some folks trickling in here. This is week 4 of REI Presents Live. It is an event series of screenings and panels where we're revisiting some of our favorite films from the REI Film Library and talking about them in our current context. With everything happening in the world, we're in the midst of a global pandemic. We're having environmental disaster, we're having heartbreak. This is an unprecedentedly widespread understanding of what is actually happening with racism in America. And all of us are trying to navigate these new conversations, and we can do it together using some of the films that have already been in the library and out into the world. My name is Faith Briggs. My pronouns are she, hers. I'm coming to you from Cheronaka ancestral lands in Virginia, where I'm on the road. And I'm very excited to be your host today. Our film is going to be The Mirnavator. I'm super excited about it. It is a beautiful film and one that every time I see it, I am just inspired and excited. And it's about Mirna Valerio, who's going to be here today on a panel after the film, as well as the filmmaker Sarah Menzies and our good friend Allison Desir. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the film. Thank you for wanting to dig into these conversations with us. Just a few things about the event tonight. We do have a chat. Feel free to send us some messages and that kind of thing in the chat. It is a private chat, so you won't be talking to everyone, but you can contact all the panelists. We also have a Q&A feature that's going to be at the bottom of your Zoom link, so you can put questions in there. We'll do our best to answer them. We've gotten a ton of questions in for this event today already during the registration, so we're super excited to get into that, and we're so glad that you're so engaged. The next thing we're going to do is watch the film. It's about 11 minutes long. We'll be playing it here, but we're also going to put a link in the chat. So just in case for some reason yours is kind of glitching or you're getting some lag, you can go ahead and click the link that's in the chat and you'll be able to watch the film there and then come back and meet back up with us here. Just a note on kindness. It is hard enough every day. Let's keep kindness and love and all of the comments and everything in the chat. We expect that of our community. And yeah, after the film, we'll do intros from all of our panelists and we'll go from there. Awesome. Thank you so much. And without further ado, let's watch The Mirnavator. Thank you.
You are a liar and a fraud. You are not a runner. I have seen your few videos where you actually pretend to run. What a joke. You are moving no faster than what I can walk. You expect people to actually be stupid enough to believe this. A true professional runner is not overweight, which is what you are. A person who runs marathons for a living is not overweight, which is what you are. F you. You want to further fat acceptance and people to kill themselves in your perverse idea of beauty. F you. And that email actually came while I was finishing up a 50K. I was actually engaged in that activity that this person had accused me of being a fraud at. I live in Raven Gap, Georgia, which is in the North Georgia mountains. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, which is very different from Raven Gap, Georgia. And I was born and raised there. My name is Mirna Valerio, and I am a teacher, an ultra runner, a mom, a writer, a blogger, a singer, a diversity practitioner, and lots of other things. Nobody in my family did anything athletic, so like it was foreign to me, just doing exercise on purpose. It was absolutely foreign. I love my body the most when I'm out running. Even if it's hard and even if I'm having a bad day, like, I know I have my body and it works and it is allowing me to do this thing. And so like, I feel really strong and powerful, and in that I feel beautiful. So this summer, I am booked almost every weekend with races and other events. The first thing I have going on is a half marathon in Boulder, Colorado, and then the following week I have a trail marathon in Massachusetts. I have a 50K up in Vermont, and then that's when I start tapering for Trans-Rockies. I never thought that I could run 18 miles one day and then 10 miles the next, and but I can. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, my body got this. We are in Black Mountain, North Carolina at the Black Mountain Monster 12 and 24-hour race. One of the reasons I'm here is, number one, so I can be with my friends. I have a bunch of friends here. And we all love to do trail running and to hang out and camp. The other reason I'm here is because I wanted to get my first 50K of the season out of the way. So I'll be running and hiking and crawling for 12 hours. So I'm hoping to do 30, 31, 33 miles today, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. I feel strong, I feel capable, I feel like I'm ready.
Love you, Black!
I don't know a whole lot about the course because I didn't do any research, but I do know it's pretty flat. But in trail runner speak, that could mean that there are rolling hills. It could mean that there's 9,000 feet of elevation. So I don't really know what to expect. I'll just see when I get there. Well, I'm Black. I'm a big girl. Actually, nowadays people know who I am, so it's like not as big of a deal. But before, I would show up and I'd get some looks like, okay, what do we have here? All right. Is she doing the 5K? Is she walking? You know, people will just say things sometimes. You're kind of heavy to be out here running. Maybe you should go to the gym. Or that, yeah, people say stuff all the time. I finished 3 loops, which is 9 miles. It feels good, like I feel really strong. I'm trying my salami sandwich, which is what I like to have because it has lots of salt in it, and I've got my carbs and the bread and my protein and the cheese. I had some of my chips, my jalapeno chips, just in case my stomach starts acting up, because somehow it settles my stomach, and then a little bit of drink. The course is awesome. It is like, there's varied terrain, there's really pristine single track trail, there's double track trail, but yeah, so I'm ready to go. Finish some more loops. It's going okay. My back is still really stiff, but my legs are working. Sometimes they work just on their own without any input from my brain, and so that's good. So it just keeps me moving forward, and yeah, I mean, I'm tired, but like, I can do this. Like, clearly I've done 18 miles already, so like I can do more, and so I'm stoked about that. See you in a bit. Trail running is really hard. It's not an easy thing for me, but I love that about it, that it's not easy, but I'm still able to do it. Hey. I do it because I do want to show people that it's possible. You know, I may not be fast, I may be the last person, but for me, that doesn't matter. Hello everybody, this is the Mirnavator, and I just finished 9 loops, and I'm going for my 10th, which will be a little bit over 30 miles, and then I'll be done. I'm so happy. I sound drunk. I sound drunk.
Are you? One more. We're going to do it with you. We got it.
This is my last loop, and I'm ecstatic and in pain. My legs feel great, my back doesn't. Yeah, I'm ready to finish. I'm really excited. First 50K of the season. I took out my cell phone to take a couple of selfies with my friends, just to kind of document the experience, because that's what I do. I love documenting the experience so I could share it with others. I stopped right in the middle of the trail, and I really should not have been reading my email on the final leg of my 50K. I shouldn't have been, but I was. You are a liar and a fraud. A true professional runner is not overweight, which is what you are. You want to further fat acceptance and people to kill themselves in your perverse idea of beauty. There's a little bit of emotion that comes to the surface, because it's like, why would somebody reach out to me and say that? Why would you want to do that? Why do you want to intentionally hurt people? This is definitely the first time I've gotten something that was so targeted and intentional to me personally. I'm not a fraud. I run slowly, and sometimes I walk, but I run. And I'm a big girl. I know that. But that doesn't have anything to do with anything. I still get out there and run. I do what I need to do. This guy had one idea of what a runner should look like, how fast a runner should be going, and that people who had my body type or body weight really shouldn't be out there. That was the message I got. This is real. Fat shaming is real. There's a reason why people have body dysmorphia. It's because of things like that, because people can be so mean and so limited in their view of what a human body can look like. I know the truth. The truth is that I'm a runner. I'm not a fraud. So I wanted to celebrate that, and so I chose to concentrate on that and to focus on the good things that came out of the race, because it was 99% good, except for that one thing that happened with that email. That was not that person's moment. It was mine.
Let's get you warm.
Oh my God, my arm's about to fall off the throat. I finished. I did 31 miles, which is 50K. Tonight I will be, I'm gonna head to the showers and take a nice hot shower and warm up a little bit, maybe drink a glass or two of wine, and yeah, and then post stuff on social media.
I'm echoing those credits. Thank you, Mirna. I'd love to have our panelists join us. Hey! And have you guys do a quick intro of yourselves. So much to talk about. Every time I see that film, it's such a range of emotions. I think every time when it starts, I'm just like so mad again. And then we like get into it, and Mirna, with such grace, you bring us into all these other emotions. So let's start with Mirna. And one of the things I've been thinking about is just what is bringing people joy and delight in these times. So I'd love, as part of your intro, to tell what's bringing you joy right now.
Nothing. Just kidding. There's lots that's bringing me joy right now. I'm actually in a beautiful B&B, like a real B&B, like not somebody's nasty house, but a bed and breakfast in Maine. And I'm doing a Maine adventure this weekend. I'm getting paid to do it. And I have to say that I wouldn't be living the life that I live now and doing all of these adventures and getting to travel, even just locally, had it not been for this film. So I'm living a life full of joy right now. You know, I've got, my kid is healthy. I'm healthy-ish. My knee is not so healthy, but it's, you know, it's getting better. And the weather's nice. It's fall. I'm a fall baby. My birthday's next week. I like red wine. And, you know, I'm feeling good right now. And if you are not feeling joy and I can give you some joy, please let me know, as long as it's not inappropriate. So.
I love that. I love that. Allison, how are you?
Well, I have a lot more joy after hearing Mirna. I'm all right. I have a 15-month-old son who's amazing, but he is starting his terrible twos early. So I'm very happy to be speaking with grown-ups about something so important right now. So this is bringing me joy.
And Sarah.
Yeah, I'm with Allison on this one. I think just you can all feel Mirna's infectious energy. I can tell you I'm much more joyful now than I maybe was earlier today. But yeah, you know, I think what's bringing me joy is trying to stay active every day, whether that's getting outside and doing something or it's taking political action, you know, something just to fill my time up to feel productive in these times. My dog certainly brings me a lot of joy. She's a good reminder to get outside a couple times a day. Yeah, but yeah, I'm with Mirna. It's fun seeing the weather change and the leaves change, and who knows what the winter will hold, but I'm here ready to embrace it.
Totally. I'm just so happy to be in conversation with you all, and thank you for being here. Let's hop into the questions because we got a ton in from the audience, which is exciting. Mirna, let's start with you. This film came out September 2017, which feels crazy to me because it feels like a long time ago. And yet, like, so much must have changed and happened and conversations sparked, and you kind of alluded to that. But can you tell us a little bit about, yeah, what has it been like? What has it sparked? What's been surprising? Yeah.
Well, you know, one of the things is that there has not been a day since the day that it was released in September of 2017, that I haven't gotten a message about it, about how profoundly it has affected someone's life, or how, you know, screw the haters, because people get angry at the haters, and they're like, you're better than the haters, and I look on your Instagram, and you're doing so well, so screw the haters, you know, and it's so fun and awesome. People will email me, they'll DM me on Instagram and on Twitter, you know, and people are still discovering this film. And it's evergreen, right? And it's because it's still speaking to people on a very deep level. And so, you know, what it has done is, you know, it has spurred a lot of different types of conversations, conversations on body image, conversations on racism, conversation on, you know, well, sizeism as a part of body image, and, you know, who belongs in sports, who doesn't belong in sports. All of those conversations have been had, you know, I think, in mostly productive ways. Some people are, you know, have not been productive about them. Those are the same people who are not productive about the conversations that we're having now, you know, in terms of our election. And so, you know, it's just been the gift that keeps on giving, in very good ways, because I think, even though I think Sarah and I thought it was going to be a very different sort of film, and it's in the state that it's in, it really hammers down this message of inclusivity, and do whatever the hell you need to do for yourself without giving a second thought to what other people think. It's really hard. It's very, very hard to do, but it's a muscle you can use and practice and train and grow until you don't give a crap anymore.
I love that. I love the idea that we can practice all of these different things and that all of these things can become a muscle. There's a great Krista Tippett quote about hope also being a muscle that I love. Sarah, I feel like as a filmmaker, some of the most exciting praise that you can hear is that your film is evergreen. You know, the idea that it doesn't age out, that it's always relevant, and I would absolutely agree. And I'd love to talk to you a little bit about how this film came together, how you and Mirna met, and how this story created itself. Because very often we go into a film, you know, thinking it will be about one thing, and then something else rises to the surface. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely know that firsthand, Faith, as a filmmaker as well. You really need to shed any sort of bias or version of the story that you think it's going to be, and just let it naturally unfold once you're on production. And I've certainly fallen victim to that, you know, where you're so closed off to another version because you think it's this. And in a lot of ways, I think this film almost was that, of thinking like, I'm not giving that guy any screen time with this. But I think that, you know, that was a very careful decision to give him that screen time in order to prove this point. But yeah, to back up, I guess it was probably the winner going into Mirna's that first 50K of the season, which I think was a rainy weekend in May. And REI was just starting to do these short documentary films, branded content. You know, they were kind of building out this platform, and had come to me just having seen my films at that point, which were mostly about women dedicating their lives to their sport in one way or another, whether it was cycling or fly fishing or surfing or any of these things. And so I think they'd come to me saying, hey, we like your style, pitch us a story. We want you to be a part of the rollout of these early films. And I pulled on my dear friend Jenny Nichols right away, who shot the film with me. And we just started hitting the old Google machine and seeing who we could find, because this was a really rare opportunity to have someone like REI coming, you know, saying, you know, usually you're begging a brand to get on board with a vision that you have, but this was a rare one where they said, start, you know, whatever it's greenlit, basically, just come up with a good story. And somewhere in that spreadsheet, Mirna's blog, Fat Girl Running, came up. And so I got on the phone with her, and I think within minutes knew, like, this is our person. And at that point, yeah, that early 2017, I'll give REI credit for being a huge leader in changing what we're seeing in adventure film. But at that point, it was still pretty rare to, one, see a person of color as your main character, and two, someone that's, you know, not fitting the image, sort of, you know, body image wise, of what an athlete would look like. Going to all the different outdoor and adventure film festivals, you just wouldn't have seen Mirna's story necessarily. So it was a really exciting time to pitch this story, and right away they saw it and like, yes, let's do it. And I have plenty more of things to say about how much they got behind the story. But yeah, once we were on the ground filming, I thought this was going to be a full summer of following Mirna when on her way to the Trans Rockies, which is an incredibly intense race, a 6 or 7 day stage race where you're doing, geez, yeah, nearly like a marathon of trail running at high elevation. You know, to me, that was the film. Like, let's follow Mirna as she's prepping for this. Hence what feels like repetitive footage, but I can guarantee there are no repeat shots. But what we shot that day was meant to be, you know, all of 5 seconds in a montage of Mirna prepping for this huge stage race. But then that email came in and everything. I remember calling the folks at REI to say, hey, big shift here. How should we handle this? And yeah, and it was a lot of dialogue with Mirna too, to make sure that she was comfortable going there. I thought this was going to be a film about race, because going to just one single trail running race with Mirna, it was clear, like, I think there was maybe one other Black person, but I don't think so even. I think that was it. And so to me, that was the story. And then the body stuff was going to be, well, what can you say? She's running, you know, 50K, like, let's just see her do it and make this more about race. But that email definitely thrusted us in another direction, thankfully, because I think I learned a lot through that process and realized how important this is, which we can touch on later. I've taken up a lot of real estate in my answer.
It's always wonderful to hear like how the stories kind of come together. And Allison, I'm so happy you're here. Allison, you do so much. And I am like, every time I'm like, this is happening, that's happening. You do so much around women, around running, about the Black community, about mental health, about physical health. And in these times, and you've been doing it for a while, for years at this point. And I, had the wonderful experience of, normally I was in person, now we're on the screen more when I was in New York. But, what have you seen? I think with so much happening in the world and you being really spearheading a lot of different conversations around inclusion, around equity in this time, we see an email like this, we see comments like this, we know that there are people that have this mentality out there, and we're in the middle of this shift. What are your reflections on kind of the times and in all the areas that you work?
Yeah. So, I think that mostly I remain hopeful, right? And to your point, hope is a muscle. But I think, there are certain strategies around how I maintain hopeful, and some of that has to do with not engaging with the news regularly. But I think that what I see a lot of right now is that there are a lot of folks who are really curious, really excited, but don't necessarily know how to start or how to have the conversation. And so I think, like me as a Black woman, there are days when I'm really resentful that this could be brand new for somebody if we're talking about race, right? Like, this conversation is new to you, like, what a privilege, and I'm resentful and upset. And then there are other days when I'm like, but this is a really beautiful opportunity to engage, and it may not be my job to answer this question, but to direct that person to resources. So when I think about just this week, we launched the Running Industry Diversity Coalition, which is a brand new coalition that brings together all segments of the running industry, from trail running to running retail, to brands, to individual runners. And it's really looking at all the ways in which running is rooted in, or the industry is rooted in, white supremacy, and the opportunities to diversify it and make it more equitable. And I think, we were like, okay, what if nobody even shows interest, right? And it's like we have over 200 people who in just 24 hours are interested in committing and finding out more information, and feeling really and truly that they had never felt like there was a place to have these kinds of conversations, despite all the resources that we know exist, right? Like, we're not inventing anything here. But that to me is really powerful. And that shows me that no matter what is going on, there are always allies within reach. There are always support systems available to you. And that really helps ground me and continue to do the work that I do.
Totally. Yeah. I feel you on that dichotomy every day. It's like how I feel about the world every day. I want to talk about sizeism. I want to talk about body image. Obviously one of the themes of the film, and something that comes up so often. I'm actually out on a film shoot right now about 5 cyclists who are, riding from Mobile, Alabama up to Washington, D.C. And one of them, he's like, I'm a big guy, and he's a mechanic, and he's talking about basically all of the misconceptions that exist, where people think, not only do people tell them, similar to how Mirna says in the film, oh, like, what are you doing out here? Oh, you're probably not in the right place. Not only do people tell them they're in the wrong place, but also you walk into a place and someone's looking at you like, or you've internalized these things. Oh, I can't be a runner. Oh, I can't be a cyclist. Oh, I don't look the part. And it goes beyond. I mean, it's our skin color, it's our gear, it's our bodies, it's all of these things where people tell you either you're not supposed to be here, or you think because there's no representation or et cetera, you're not supposed to be there. And I'd love to talk, maybe Mirna, if you can start us off talking about the work you've been doing in that space with REI and in all of these other ways since the film has come out into the world.
Yeah, sure. I will tell you now that I just had knee surgery a couple of weeks ago, and meniscus tear, which is a very common, knee injury thing. And I have been grappling myself with some body image issues right now because I'm not able to run. And normally, you know, like intellectually, I'm like, love my body. My body's like strong as hell. Like, I mean, if I can go 100K, if I can do trans Rockies, if I can, you know, hop on a bike when my knee doesn't really work and ride, you know I'm strong, but I'm still like grappling with some feelings, you know, because I haven't been able to move in the way that I love to. At a high intensity. And so just know that, like, even though I am a champion for positive body image, I don't really like to say body positivity because that term has been co-opted, and it doesn't have any meaning anymore. But in terms of body image, yes, like, you know, I can still intellectually love myself, love my body, know that is incredible, and still like have these societal pressures that still reside in my conscious. So that's what's happening with me now. But I think in terms of what this film did was to open up that conversation about, you know, where is the gear? And why don't we have it? And what have our excuses been for not having this gear? Why don't, you know, and it's a matter of access and a matter of, you know, for lack of a better term, blindness to the needs of a whole slew of people who have lots of money, lots of disposable income, people who love to exercise, but just can't find anything in their size. And, you know, just like, you know, there's a certain lack of vision, you know, when it comes to the disabled community, like who's making gear for people who are disabled? You know, it's, you know, what the industry has been very, very focused on this very white male, sometimes female, if we're thinking in the gender binary, which is not good. But you know, that's been the history of the industry. That's who they make clothes for. Still to this day, I will say that many, many companies are doing the work right now. REI was, you know, hired me a couple of years ago to go around to various markets. We showed the film. They did all of this really, really cool stuff about identity and, you know, what is lacking in terms of apparel for you, for someone your size, for someone your height. And it was a really cool exercise because that's what you should do anyway when you are outfitting people. And so what I talk about a lot when I'm talking about body image and apparel specifically, I talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right? So on the bottom, you got your physiological, psychological safety. And as you go up the pyramid, you're talking about sense of community, sense of belonging. When you have that, then you can move on to self-expression, and then the top is self-actualization. If you don't have clothes that fit you, that are performance-based and that allow you to live, exercise, we need to move, right? To continue living. If we don't have clothing to do that, then we are not able to fully self-actualize. And that's what I think of when I think of, you know, providing clothing for everyone, providing high quality, hopefully lower cost at some point for everyone who needs and wants to be outdoors, who needs and wants to run or lift or whatever. There shouldn't be a question about it. There shouldn't have to be a discussion. There shouldn't have to be, well, you know, these people don't come into the stores because you don't have anything for them. That's why we don't go into the stores, or we get pretty womened. And so, but I've been very, very fortunate because of this. I've been very fortunate to sign with a bunch of companies and wear their clothes and be part of their design process, their sizing process. You know, I don't really have any sort of visual acuities, but you know, it's in terms of the way the clothes fit and stuff. I have been honored to be part of that process. It should not have taken this long, but here we are. I'm glad it's happening. It needs to happen with more companies. I'm not going to say who, but you know who you are. So, but the other thing I will say is that I know that it's not a matter of if we can. We totally can.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of if you want, and if that's part of your company's aesthetic. So, and that's a whole other thing. And that sucks that that's even a part of the decision-making process. But, you know, some companies don't want bigger people like me wearing their clothes because it destroys their aesthetic. So that the aesthetic that is probably very based in white aesthetic sensibilities. So, which is thin, somewhat muscular, but not too muscular for women, because that particular aesthetic is associated with the opposite of savagery, the opposite of being a sloth or slovenly, or and so it's all tied up into identity and what we want to portray ourselves as and what we don't want to portray ourselves as. I can go on and
on that real quick.
Yes.
I think it was so cool. I mean, during the interview, that was really important for me to hear. Like, I mean, like I was saying before, in my head, this was a film about race, and so during the interview, what was it, our 3 or 4 hour interview? My apologies, Mirna, but we have a lot to talk about. But I had said, you know, I'd gotten to my list of questions that all had to do with body image. And I said, you know, I kind of don't even want to talk about this in the film. Let's just see your body doing it. And that's going to break down anyone's stereotype. And you called me out on that. And you said, no, I can't walk into an REI store and try clothes on. And so as long as that's the case, we're going to need to talk about this so that there can actually be change that happens. And I remember, so then we had a great conversation about it, which I'm grateful for, because I learned a lot, but it also changed the trajectory of this film, incredibly so. But then to go back to REI after and explain that, like, hey, just you're supporting a film about a woman that can't actually shop in your brick and mortar stores. So either buckle down and get ready for the backlash or start making some changes. And it was really great to see their response. And but ultimately, I think what I learned through this, and just to kind of build on what you're saying, Mirna, is it is a huge barrier to entry for someone that wants to get into the outdoors or any sort of physical activity. And they're just wearing like baggy clothes that's their older brothers or their dads or their boyfriends or whoever, just to try and go on a hike or go on a run or do the thing that they're trying to do. And no one wants to be seen, you know, if you're not looking good, you're not gonna, you know, there is just this mental block of, okay, I need to do this in secret until I'm at a size where I can get in clothes that I feel good in. And that is so messed up. And so I'm just so proud of Mirna, and I'm proud of what REI has done to bring her in that first year to use this film to and have those conversations to change in-store options, because it is a huge barrier to entry to someone that's going to be inspired by Mirna's story and see that they can do this too. But wait, I have to order this online, and then by the time it shows up, it doesn't fit me, and I send it back, and now I'm 2 weeks later and trying to do this thing, and maybe I've lost my inspiration at this point. You know, it's just, it all builds on itself. If you aren't getting in clothes you feel good in.
Yeah. And also, you know, just as far as like participating in events, quick story. Once I bought some tights, they were men's tights, because I could not find any running tights in my size that were actually running tights, that weren't cotton or athleisure. And this is a couple of years ago. Now I have too many tights. Call me if you need any. So I was doing the Steamtown Marathon in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And the first 8 miles are downhill, and I was running at a clip, and holding my pants up because they had a big baggy area in the front and they just weren't built for a woman. And I ran 8 miles with holding my pants up. I mean, that was my fastest marathon, but had it not been downhill, it would have been probably my slowest one, because I was, having so much trouble running with one arm, holding my pants up. And but that's a real thing. It's still a real issue for some people, because people don't necessarily know where to look. I have a very large Facebook group called Fat Girl Running. It's 16,500 people. And every single day there are questions about, well, where do I get a bra? Where do I get tights that won't rub out in the middle? Where do I get something, something to wear so that I can be modest and follow my, religious rules and traditions? Because people don't know still, even by doing a Google search, you're still going to see the very, very traditionally, I'm not going to say traditionally shaped, traditional representations of who is an athlete, right? And so, so it's a real thing. It's still going on. We still need lots and lots of work in this area.
Allison, thoughts? I mean, I feel like we could riff forever on all of what Mirna was saying from all of it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of my relationship with my body changed after getting pregnant. And I had so many misconceptions and beliefs around what pregnancy was, which, by the way, for me, pregnancy was terrible. Like, I hated it. And I had this idea in my head about like the bounce back, right? And in my mind, I was comparing myself, completely unrealistic comparisons. I was comparing myself to people like Allison Felix, right? To folks who were, first of all, already had a different body than I had. But I had this expectation in my mind that 3 months later, I'd be fine, I'd be running, I'd have my old body again. And I think for me, in addition to postpartum depression, I had to come to terms with the fact that the body that I once had is now no longer the body that I have, that it would work differently, and that I'm a different size. And I think part of that now, I still struggle with owning this body, and I oscillate between like, I love my body, I'm so amazing, look what it can do, to body neutrality, to being like, my body's a vessel, right? Like, that's not even important. And then I recently listened to a podcast between Sonia Renee Taylor and Brene Brown, and the title of it is "My Body Is Not an Apology." And I started to think about, again, all of these ways that like white supremacy and these ideas filter into your mind about your body, your Blackness, your identity, what it means to occupy certain spaces, and this feeling that I should always be small. And then I go on this whole line of thinking about ableism, right? And if my attachment to my body is based on what it can do, then I'm like deeply, deeply embedded in this ableist structure. So I'm at a point, like, I love listening to Mirna and other folks in this space, because I gain insight, because I really feel like I had so much body privilege that I was unaware of. And now I'm really trying to learn more about myself and realize that, like, this is a process that we all go through. We are all going to age. We are all going to look different and have different abilities and thoughts about ourselves. So I'm very curious. And I think that it's a shame that we have to expend so much energy on just this skin, but I'm thankful for the process.
And I want to say to you, Allison, that I am very appreciative of you sharing that part of your life with us so widely, not wildly, maybe wildly, I don't know. And just so honestly, because I think a lot of us, we need that. We, especially people who have had children, or just anyone who's aging. That is everybody, my body's different than it was even 2 years ago. And, I'm 17 years into having that kid, and my body still has not recovered, and it's not going to. So. Right. But you keep that hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Doing the best I can. You're 17 years postpartum, Mirna.
But it's so real, right? These stories that we're told about who, how it all works, right? Like motherhood, it's the kid. Everyone loves being pregnant. Then you have the kids, then you're back to this and that. And like, there's all of these things that we're told every day about ourselves. And then when it's not our reality, it's like, wait, did I mess up? Did I do something, wrong? Did I, and then we're gaslighting ourselves because the reality that we've been sold has been a lie, So we're holding ourselves to a standard that was never the standard for most people. And I think, a few of the things that you said, Alison, they certainly resonate with me too, and particularly in terms of ableism and just being able to see what my own blind spots have been. And it brings me to the next question. I'd love each of you to kind of weigh in on, and we'll get to more of the audience questions, but it's like, how do we talk about awkward things? How do we move into and wade into spaces that were uncomfortable? Because I think that's what's happening to everyone right now. And even the most like the people that people look to, many of us, and it's like, oh, she knows this, she knows DI, she does this, she's a practitioner. It's like, and also there are things I'm learning daily. And so I'd love you to share with other folks who are trying to, figure out like, how do I move forward in this discomfort? What helps you do that?
Can I start? All right. With a British accent.
Opera, please, only.
Opera. Okay, sorry. We need levity, y'all. So a lot of folks know that I've been doing a lot of anti-racism education because it was my job before I stopped teaching. And so there are two things that I like to point people to. One is this notion of critical humility. And what critical humility is this state of being in which we know that we are all learning, right? We are all learning, and we are all going to make really awful mistakes. Hopefully they're not mistakes that, have anybody killed or anything, but like, we are all going to make mistakes. And the important part of that is owning up to your mistakes and moving on, right? Moving on. Okay, actually there are three things, okay? So that's one thing. The second thing is this other thing called critical consciousness, right? Critical consciousness is knowing your identity, all of your various identities, naming them, because when we name things, we know what they are. And when we name good things, we are able to, for lack of a better word, procreate the goodness, continue. And when we know, like when we are able to name things like racism and things like sexism and stuff like that, things that affect our identities negatively, things that disadvantage our identities, we can then dismantle those things or disrupt those things. And so the critical consciousness part is about knowing your identities, acknowledging your own identities, and doing that for other people, knowing other people's identities, acknowledging them. And then the third thing is one of the community guidelines that I use, and I think it's a guideline for life. Your intent doesn't mean anything. It don't mean shit.
Preach.
It is the impact that your thoughts, actions, attitudes, and behaviors have on other people that is important. Okay, I'm gonna stop preaching right now.
Keep preaching.
I love that. I want to say, like, even in hearing you talk, something that I think about a lot as a mental health counselor advocate is I like to think about, like, when I do something quote unquote wrong or make a mistake, where do I feel that in the body, right? Mm-hmm. And it'll be like, normally I get like a tenseness in my chest, I start to sweat, my stomach hurts, I have rapid thoughts. And for me, like when I get those feelings, I know that I'm actually moving in the right direction, right? Mm-hmm. Because my body is sending me a signal like, this is some new shit. you're on the brink of something great. You're feeling triggered, but settle yourself first, right? Because what used to happen with me is I would make a mistake, and not necessarily related to race or any of these things, but I would make a mistake, get all those feelings, and then I'd be like, right? And you like drill down, and I'm thinking of that cat meme.
Yeah, totally.
And that's not the moment. Unfortunately, in the space of social media, there's often this like, well, you haven't responded in an hour. Like, we need a response right now. So I understand like that folks are really intense about this when you make mistakes. But I really think, like, if you can focus on where you're feeling this in the body, how can you then control your thoughts, control your breathing, step away and come back? You're doing yourself a great service. And you also then have learned that this is how I react under certain circumstances, right? So then when it's triggered somewhere else, you can be like, oh, I have a memory of this. I've dealt with this before. I know what to do.
Love it.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm in a unique position. I get to just put cameras in people's faces, so that makes any awkward conversation even more awkward. But I think it is it's great to be a storyteller in these times too, because I think you get access and you get to ask questions that maybe me without a camera I might be scared to ask, but when I have the camera it can always be, hey, you know, not everyone's gonna know this, so share this with me. But I think it is, I mean, even using this film as a great example, that I didn't even understand the half of what an athlete like Mirna is going through, you know, or even how to talk about body image. Like, so much was revealed to me that but I'm in this unique position that I get to just ask Mirna, because that's the point of this film. And then I get to convey that, you know, be, I guess, sort of an ally or ambassador in some sorts, you know, to an audience when I can. So I guess I started that as a joke, but rounded it back out that it is an exciting time, you know, to have a camera, and that can be a pretty good crutch in a way too, to get questions asked that I might be too scared to ask without one.
I mean, you're also like you're a great interviewer. So, I mean, I remember like the very last day we were shooting, and you're like, are you ready for this? And I'm like, what? Am I ready for what? And you're like, sit down. I'm like, okay. But, and you're like, take out your phone. And then I was like, oh, wow. Cause I had like tried to block that whole thing out of my mind.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I have to say, like,
I brought it back up.
I mean, but I mean, it was a really important, it was a very, very important moment, you know, like once I got over my like, oh shoot, I got to think about this again. But it was good closure for me, in terms of like being able to speak to somebody that would, like, you were there when it happened. Right.
Yeah.
And, but you know, but I'm really appreciative of social media, because, you know, when that thing happened, the only reason, well, you knew about it. You were waiting for me at the end. Right?
I saw you.
And you know, this guy emails me, and my friends were there with me, and they're like, put your phone away. You're doing the thing that he says you're not doing. And I was like, well, not before I put it on Instagram.
Yeah.
You know? Because I was like, I have to share this. People have to know. People have to know what comes at a person like me. You know, I get like lots of positive things, and I am always super, super appreciative and honored that people take the time out of their day to say, hey, you know, you're doing a great job. Hey, I love seeing you at such and such race. And you really, you got me running again, or you got me playing tennis again. And that's awesome. And so like people need to hear stories. And so like, even if the questions are awkward and hard to deliver, we have to do it, and we have to, you know, lean into that discomfort. We have to be okay being uncomfortable. And that is the only way that we are going to progress.
Totally. Yeah. We had a panel for Brotherhood of Skiing, and one of the guys was saying, he's like, I have to be more honest about my pain, because people think that I'm just okay navigating in this world that I'm in. And I just want to be okay navigating in this world I'm in. But the reality is I'm dealing with this stuff every day, and navigating historically white spaces where he doesn't want to tell people what he's getting in the parking lot, what he's getting in other places. And I agree. It's like people need to hear all of those things. They need to hear the success, I hate that word, but they need to see it all. We only have 4 minutes though. And I know. We've got a hard out. So quick rapid fire. Let's talk about running. What's your advice for new runners? What's your favorite race or your favorite way to run? I know everyone doesn't love racing all the time. Let's maybe do those two, but definitely there's new runners that want to know, like, what do they need to know to get started? How do they avoid injury and that kind of thing?
Allison can answer that one.
Thanks.
I'm going to answer the one about my favorite race, Trans Rockies 6-day stage race there's nothing to compete with that. I mean, I am going to Chamonix next year, so I don't know. I don't know. So, I mean, if we're allowed to travel. But Trans-Rocky 6-day stage race, it's hard. It will take your breath away, literally, because it's in Colorado at altitude. But it was the best thing that I have ever done, and I'm doing it next year. I'm going to finish again, so I can get my belt, my buckle, and then go to Chamonix.
Awesome.
All right, and for the new runners out there, I very much feel like I became a new runner again, like a few months ago, coming back to running after pregnancy. And so I'll just share quickly a mistake that I made. I was like, I'm going to run 2 miles a day every day. And then like this doesn't even make sense for like a training plan, but I just had this idea. It was either 2 miles a day or it was like 45 minutes. And then I started realizing like how ridiculous, like who says it has to be 2 miles, right? And I started then going off of feel. So again, this is like the mind-body connection. I think it's really, really important not to compare yourself to other people, not to get locked into this idea of what it should be, but feel what your body wants to do, right? Some days that means like, some days right now, I can do like a tempo run at 10 minutes. That's my fast right now and feel so amazing. The next day I can only walk, right? And like, that's okay. That's where that day is. So for new runners especially, have your idols, like look up to Mirna and be like, I'm doing that race one day, but then like think about where you are on this day today.
And I will also say that I'm right now, I'm in a stage of recovery where I've just started running. Again, so I'm at 0 miles. I can't even run a half a mile right now. So I have to start all over again. So I've got all these things going on. Man, I'm not really a runner anymore. I know I'm a runner. I can't do what I want to do now, but I have to work towards it. And I have to start from the beginning. I have to be okay with being a beginner again. I know more things now, but I'm still a beginner. I still have to retrain my muscles. And so it happens. It's all of us, let's begin again together.
Let's do it.
So much more I know we want to say, but I'm like, yes. But thank you, REI. This is REI Live, REI Presents Live. We've got our partners from REI behind the scenes, playing the film, answering your questions, dropping into the chat links for these folks so you can stay in touch. Thanks to Ty Wilkinson Ray, who's been also helping produce all this and make it happen. Thank you to each of you for your time, for sharing space, for sharing your joy, for sharing your stories and your expertise. I feel so I feel better. I know those who are here probably feel better being here together, and keep in touch with these amazing folks. They are so accessible, so open. Don't send your bad vibes, but bring your good vibes, and we're all about it. So thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you, Faith.
Yeah, thanks, Faith. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
You.